Chair, you have a live mic.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody? Welcome to the commissioner meeting. Glad to have the vets in the house, any students in the house as we do Government Awareness Day. So today should be a good day.
Every day is a good day.
County Manager.
Let's begin with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation by Pastor David Wildman, Grove Church, Estates location.
Heavenly Father, we come before you today with hearts filled with gratitude as members of this community gathered for this commissioner meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to unite in purpose and service under your guidance. Lord, we lift up each commissioner and decision maker in this room. Bless their families, protect their homes, and grant them the wisdom and guidance they need to lead with integrity and compassion. As it is written in James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. May this promise guide these leaders as they seek to honor you in their service. We pray for the residents of Collier County, our business owners, our brave first responders, and our armed forces, both here and abroad. Shield them from harm and bring restoration to those who have suffered loss. May your hand of protection be upon them, and may they feel your presence in their lives. Father, as we proceed with today's agenda, let every word spoken in this room be seasoned with grace and humility. Help everyone remember the responsibility we carry, not for our own glory, but as stewards of the gifts you have entrusted to us. May we all walk in gratitude and the fear of the Lord, always mindful of the greater purpose we serve. In all that we do today, let us reflect your love and your truth, seeking not just the prosperity of our county, but the flourishing of every soul within it. We ask all these things in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
I did fail to say, and I'm glad that it didn't happen. I'm glad nobody's phone interrupted God's conversation. But if you haven't silenced your phone, please do so now. That would be most helpful.
Commissioners, agenda changes for March 26, 2024. Items 11A and 11B are time certain items at 2:30. These are related to the Rural Neighborhoods Renaissance Hall at Old Course, Second Amendment leases and income sharing agreements. I'll read the full titles in when we get at 2:30. Continue item 16D6 to the April 9th, 2024 BCC meeting. This is a recommendation to approve and authorize an after-the-fact payment in the amount of $14,268.87 to Robert Half International, Inc. for providing temporary staffing to support housing-related programs and to waive competitive procurement. This is being moved at staff's request. Add-on item 10A is a recommendation to submit a letter to Governor DeSantis to urge him to veto Senate Bill 7014, the Ethics Bill. This is being added to the agenda at Commissioner Saunders' request. Move item 16F4 to 11E. This is a recommendation to approve and authorize the chairman to execute a one-year renewal of agreement number 22-7979, Tourism International Representation UK and Ireland Market with OMMAC Limited for flat annual fixed price of $120,000 and reimbursable expenses for travel, registrations, and miscellaneous for up to $80,000, totaling $200,000 annually, and make a finding that this action promotes tourism. This is being moved at Commissioner McDaniel's request. And move item 16F5 to 11F. This is a recommendation to approve and authorize the chairman to execute a one-year renewal of agreement number 22-7980, Tourism International Representation Germany Market with Diamande EK for flat annual fixed price of $120,000 and reimbursable expenses for travel, registrations, and miscellaneous for up to $60,000, totaling $180,000 annually, and make a finding that this action promotes tourism. This is also being moved at Commissioner McDaniel's request. As I noted, companion items 11A and 11B will be heard at 2:30 p.m. And we have court reporter breaks set for 10:30 and 2:50. With that, County Attorney, any further changes?
No changes.
Commissioners.
Do we have a motion to approve the summary and the consent agenda?
If we could get our changes in ex parte.
No changes? Okay.
Yep. We'll start with Commissioner
Any
Colwell.
changes in ex parte? Commissioner Kowal?
I have no changes, and I do have items for 9B, 9C, actually 17B and 17D, meetings, emails on all four of those items.
All right. Commissioner Saunders?
Chairman, I don't have any changes to the agenda. I do have some ex parte in reference to items 17B and 17D, just meetings and some correspondence.
Right. Commissioner McDaniel?
Good morning, sir. I have no changes myself, and I have ex parte on 17B and C.
Great. I have no changes, and I have meetings on 17B and meetings on 17D as well. And Commissioner LaCastro?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have on 17B, I have meetings, and 17D, I have meetings, and no changes. But you know, with your discretion or your approval, I'd like to just defer a little bit off of the summary agenda. There's three items that I was considering pulling for more clarification, and it was 17A, 17B, and 17C. But after discussions with Mr. Bozian, I would ask if he could come forward. And I've voiced this several times, and I spoke with Ms. Patterson yesterday about it. Sometimes on the summary and the consent agenda, it could benefit from a few extra sentences. A citizen who's not in the room right now or watching the all-day proceedings could read something on the summary consent agenda and have an improper takeaway, making it sound like we're building something tomorrow, or, you know, we get these emails a lot, oh, I saw something on the summary agenda and you guys snuck another one through. So, you know, with your permission, I would just like Mr. Bozie to just give a couple of sentences to explain the Home Depot project of 17A and B and the boat project in 17C in as little as you know, as much brevity as possible, but I think it warrants just a little bit of clarification. What he said in my office yesterday, I wish would have been in print here, so that's why I just asked for him to come to the podium so that we know what we're approving and what we're not approving.
Mr. Bozie?
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Bozie, Planning and Zoning Director. For the Growth Management Plan Amendment and the commercial PUD for Home Depot, they're requesting, currently there's 6 parcels, just over 13 acres. They're zone C3, but for a big box store like a Home Depot, you need a C4. So they've submitted a Growth Management Plan Amendment to raise the commercial level to C4 within their PUD to allow for the development of a Home Depot. It's a unique site in the sense that it's shallow. It's not a very deep parcel. So this is going to be one where the building's brought much closer to the road. It's going to have a much more intimate feel. Parking's going to be to the side. But staff is in fully of support of the project. The Planning Commission had a unanimous recommendation for the project, and we think the addition of that Home Depot is going to add some additional competition to the market related to home goods and hardware that are specifically geared to the neighborhood. And one of the things that we've had conversations with the East Naples development or the East Naples community forever. They said, you know, self-storage facilities, car washes, gas stations, they're not quite what we're looking for. We want a little bit more neighborhood serving, and a Home Depot is something that's most certainly going to be able to serve those individual household needs in a direct way. So staff is fully supported this project, and as I said, the Planning Commission as well. And then the boathouse GMP and PUD, it's a similar type of situation. It's a 3-acre parcel that sits between Radio Road and Davis Boulevard, where they come together in Radio Lane, just to the west of the Circle K. It's, like I said, a 3-acre parcel, currently zone C3, but they wanted to develop a boat dealership. But a boat dealership is a C4 zoning district, so they needed to lift that zoning to C4. That's what the Growth Management Plan Amendment is. And they're only adding the one C4 use, meaning the boat dealership. And from staff's perspective, from transportation's perspective, it's an actual reduction reduction because the amount of traffic that is generated from a boat dealership compared to some of the other retail uses that could have been developed within that C3 zoning district would be a little bit more intense. So we think it's a good fit. It's a good addition to an area that has a full arrangement of infrastructure available to it. Once again, staff was recommending approval on it, as well as the Planning Commission had a recommendation of approval as well. So any questions you would have?
I just wanted to clarify that they still have to go through many approvals, traffic studies, and all the things that I know we'll get 1,000 emails on. A lot of times we hear from citizens and they say, you just rezone everything with a rubber stamp. And this is a perfect example. And Commissioner McDaniel has given these examples several times where he said, be careful what you sort of don't wish for, because you say no to this and something with much greater density and volume. So, we had a discussion yesterday that there's still many more approvals that are needed. This is just one step to let us take a closer look at the possibility of these, commercial entities going on those footprints.
Yeah, it's correct. This is the entitlement stage. The next stage is the site development stage for each one, and that's actually where our concurrency management system is applied. At your zonings, it's basically just cursory. We let you know how much volume capacity, say within the road system, within the utility system, but it's actually the site development plan where the concurrency is actually applied. Checkbook concurrency is allocated within a transportation review, and the fire districts will have to sign off on all the turning radius. There was some questions about the design of the Home Depot. Would it be able to promote a full-scale fire engine to be able to access the site? So they're not going to sign off on that site development plan unless it meets the specs of that. So there's still a lot more to come before they're going to be open for business, so to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, and just thank you, Mr. Chair. I misread on my ex parte. It's 17B and D is where I had meetings. So,
Thank you, Mr. Bosey. We have a motion to approve the consent and summary agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
County Manager.
Commissioners, item 2B are the meeting minutes of February 13th, 2024. And if you'd like to take item 2C with it, that's the meeting minutes of the February 27th, 2024 BCC meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions or comments, I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Second.
second it.
Great. Motion and second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Commissioners, that brings us to our awards and recognitions. Item 3A, 1A, Ms. Nickel will not be with us today. We will schedule her for a future meeting. So that brings us to our next 20-year attendee. This is Anthony Colangelo, Jr., Parks and Recreation. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
See, 20-year guys know the drill.
Item 3C, retirees. Item 3C1 is a recognition of Nolan Sapp for his 46 years of dedicated public safety service upon retirement. And as the chiefs approach, I just wanted to say a few words about Chief Sapp. My time in the county manager's office and before, Chief Sapp has been an amazing colleague and a friend to me and to the county. There's never been a time that I have called him or needed something from him when he hasn't answered the phone and provided me the best guidance and reassurance and help anytime, any day, or any time of the night. I want to express my sincere thank you to you, and as well as on behalf of the staff. We've all worked closely with you. We know that our relationship will continue in some form or fashion, and we look forward to seeing you around, but congratulations on your retirement for now.
Great. Commissioners, before we let Chief Sapp slide out of here, for the record, Michael Choate, I'm your Executive Director of Public Safety. His staff would like to say a few words, if that's okay this morning. I'd like to introduce Chief Wolf. He's the interim chief now since the retirement, and Commissioner Dearborn from the Greater Naples Fire Commission. And they'd like to say just a couple things about their chief. Personally, I'll take the privilege of this platform to just say when I arrived here March 1st, 2016, Chief Sapp was open arms, made me feel welcome, made me fit right in. And the first big brush fire I showed up on, he just didn't even say hello. He just kind of pointed and said, "Go do." And so I went and did. So, Nolan, we're going to miss you, brother. I'm trying to talk you into staying retired. Do not come back. But we all know better. So with that, Chief Wolf.
Good morning, everybody. Chris Wolf, Deputy Chief, Greater Naples Fire. I really don't have anything else to add other than what Ms. Patterson and Chief Choate mentioned. In the end, you're a friend of many. Many will say that when they hear you on the radio, the chaos level drops a little bit, and we know we're going to get some command and control in place. But like everyone has said, hopefully you stay retired. But I don't think that's likely. You'll pop up somewhere in about 48 weeks, if my calculations are correct with FRS. So, congratulations, Chief, and we'll miss you. And I'll air some time to either of our commissioners if they want to say anything.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Wolf. Chief Sapp, it's been an honor. For the record, Patrick Dearborn, honored to be the Fire Commissioner of Greater Naples. On behalf of, I know we have Commissioner Cherney back here as well, and all the commissioners. Chief, I'm a military guy. We got some amazing veterans here in the room. We talk about being a good tactician, and the first thing I told you when I met you was you're a great in the field, under fire tactician. Your staff's awesome. You create a really cool fairness, family atmosphere that I've seen. I know that's going to continue because you fostered that. And on behalf of just all the citizens of Greater Naples and Collier County, man, I thank you, and God bless you and your family. Thank you.
Don't smile till 3.
All right, here we go, guys. We're gonna start on 3 again. 1, 2, 3. And 1 second. And
What'd you feed me?
Talk about a fire drill.
Yeah.
Who are we waiting on? Oh, that'd be Dearborn.
everybody look at me. And we're gonna smile on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And 1 more. And 1 second.
They're good.
All right.
Yep. Hey, good morning. I'd like Mr. Mike Bosey to come forward and talk about Chief Sapp. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Chief Sapp. When we prepared the retirement ceremony at the office the other day, I was led to believe it was going to be like an open house, people will come and go. And I was blown away. As many of you attended that, I was very much appreciative of that. And to look up to see Ms. Patterson, Mr. Rodriguez, and many of you there, it was very heartfelt. I love Collier County. I've given my heart and soul to Collier County. I've given up many a day, a night, a weekend, a holiday, and without a second thought, and I'd do it again. I've enjoyed everything I've done over the 33 years that I've spent here in Collier County. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all of you for the hard work that you've put in working with me since I've been the fire chief. You've helped, along with myself, the city of Everglades secure funding for a new fire station. We've gotten Greater Naples' first COPCN. There was a huge hurdle, and many other projects that I've worked with Ms. Patterson, Mr. Rodriguez, the county attorney, and everybody with, along with Mike Choate, Dan Summers, Crystal in the back. Me and her have been together since '93 when we bought the first 800 system. We were on that selection committee, so I've had deep roots in Collier County since I came here. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I'm still gonna be living here. I enjoy living here. My family's here, and I'll find something to do here in the county. There's no doubt about it. I can't sit still that long. But thank you all. I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 4, proclamations. Item 4A is a proclamation designating March 24th through 30th, 2024 as the 41st anniversary of Know Your County Government Week, to be accepted by Tish Rowland, 4-H Youth Development Agent, U of F, IFAS, Collier County Extension, Mike Stroll, Social Studies Coordinator, Collier County Public Schools, and Diane Preston Moore, President, League of Women Voters. Congratulations.
Who wants to take this?
Got a nice smile, that's why they want you.
Dethorn.
All right, front row, scoot over a tad bit that way. We're just kidding. Very good. So if y'all can see me, that means I can see you. You'll be a foot in the photo. Here we go, guys. We're gonna smile on 3. Yeah, there we go. And here we go, guys. On 3, we're gonna smile. 1, 2, 3. And one more photo real quick. And smile.
Say a few words. Oh, there we go.
Hello, I am Nicole Villa from Golden Gate High School. I was chosen to represent the 2024 youth involved with the 31st Know Your County Government. Today we are on the 3rd day of our program. That is partnership with Collier Public Schools, League of Women Voters, and University of Florida 4-H Youth Development in Collier County. We've been all over Collier County visiting different offices, a sheriff, supervisor of electors, clerk of circuit court, property appraiser, the tax collector, wastewater facilities, and so many more. We have found that there are a lot of people working for Collier County, and they all have different backgrounds, education levels, and experiences. All these people work to make Collier County the most amazing place to live in. We would like to thank all the employees of Collier County for what they do, and your hard work is appreciated. Thank you.
Item 4B is a proclamation designating March 29th, 2024 as Vietnam War Veterans Day in Collier County to be accepted by VFW Commander Gamal Tony Reyes. Congratulations.
Wayne's everywhere.
He is everywhere. Lois makes sure.
Front and center, Spire. Okay, so we're just gonna do one row. You guys can line up against the dais.
Just back up to the dais, guys.
Simon says take one step
One
back.
row.
We're gonna do one row.
There you go. Here's a wide angle lens.
Okay, commissioners, can you please scoot over this way for me? Thank you so much, this is perfect. We can tilt that proclamation forward. That's great. All right, here we go. We're gonna smile on 3. 1, 2, 3. And one more. And smile. You're good, thank you.
Commissioners, would you direct Dusty Holmes, former United States Army nurse, to join us at the front?
Come on, Dusty.
I'll pay for that later, people.
All right, here we go. Smile. 1, 2, 3. And now one more time. Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, I love that. Love it.
Look at Wayne.
Kristen.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Tony Reyes, the VFW Post 7721 Commander, and we do appreciate the invitation and the recognition that you have expressed to us today. We also want to take advantage and special thanks to Commissioner LaCastro and his staff for spearheading the effort of putting together the proclamation for us. It was very well done, and thank you very much for it. On behalf of the well, they're all escaped from me. I was going to recognize our Vietnam veterans here today, but for those that remained, thank you for your service and welcome home. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. My
Jackie.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 7, public comments on general, oh, yes, could we get a motion to accept the proclamations first, please? Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor to accept the proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 7, public comments on general topics not on the current or future agenda. Troy.
Mr. Chair, we have 8 registered speakers for this item. Your first speaker is Lori Harris, and she will be followed by Jackie Kay.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lori Harris. I am from Marco Island, Florida. Good morning, everyone. Collier County Domestic Animal Services has an advisory board. This board has 3 open seats that are up for appointment in April: a veterinarian or vet tech, Humane Society, and an at-large. I have applied for the at-large seat. I'm a full-time resident of Marco Island, a volunteer at DAS, the adoptions coordinator for Guardians of Florida Animal Rescue, a member and volunteer at the Marco Presbyterian Church, and I was a member of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary as a licensed captain and instructor, and a volunteer for the Marco Patriots. As you can see, I'm dedicated to my community and the animals. The seat I applied for is currently held by Sue Law. I don't know if she's seeking reappointment to the seat, nor do I know if anybody else has applied for any of the open seats. That's Sunshine Laws. As per the Office of County Attorney, the current advisory board reviews all applications, decide who they want on the board, then submits the applications for your approval. In my opinion, the current advisory board is dysfunctional. A public records request for the last 5 years cannot locate any recommendations from the advisory board to the Board of County Commissioners. The veterinarian was delighted to get off the board, stating, "I don't see how this board brings any changes to the community." The chairman changed meetings from monthly to quarterly and stated to me, since Marcy, she's the director, does everything herself, there's little for us to do. I disagree with the sentiment and believe there is much the advisory board can do to assist the DAF staff who work so very hard for the animals and the community. I'm here today because of my commitment to this community. A healthy, functioning advisory board will identify problems and work together to find solutions. My vision is to bring the nonprofit organizations in Collier to work in tandem with DAS, as we all have the same mission. In the next couple of weeks, the chairman of the advisory board will ask you to approve his recommendations for the 3 open seats. I respectfully request that you are not a rubber stamp to those recommendations and instead review the applicants and appoint the most qualified. Respectfully submitted. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Jackie Kay. She'll be followed by Richard Schroeder.
Good morning, Jackie Kay, proud Army veteran. 1 John 2:18, 4:2-3 warns us that there have been and will be many more antichrists. The Antichrist is Satan's spirit that is manifested in toxic people, and John confirms that these hypocrites will come from the Christian community. Like Satan, such deceitful and corrupt Christians have rejected God in their hearts, and Satan is the original Antichrist who opposes God and is the epitome of all things evil. These misguided liars who claim to be Christians are devils prove through consistent acts of hatred and evil that they are antichrists. They blaspheme Jesus' name and weaponize Christianity, which damages God's kingdom. They seem to forget that blasphemy is an unforgivable sin and hell is their only option. According to Psalm 97:10, those who love God will hate evil. Contrary to God's words, those who are antichrists love evil and hate good. They are so hateful that they are targeting and persecuting the very people Jesus commanded us to share the truth of the gospel with. According to Jesus in Matthew 7:21-23, not everyone who claims or who calls him Lord will enter his kingdom. Jesus is clear that only those who obey and do the will of God will enter heaven. As such, he will tell the evildoers he does not know them, which refers them or defers them to hell. Antichrists will be judged more harshly because they know the truth and still choose Satan. These devils embody forces of darkness and evil spirits. Ephesians 6:12. We are warned in 1 Corinthians 5:11 through 13 to not associate or even eat with anyone who claims to be Christian and live in sinful activities like sex outside of marriage, lies about others, worship idols, including politicians, or blasphemers. The Apostle Paul clarifies that it is God's job to judge those outside of the church and believers' job to judge those inside the church who are living in sin. Lastly, in Revelation 19 and 20, Satan, the beast, Antichrist, prophet, the man of lawlessness and son of destruction and their followers will be thrown into the lake of fire where they will be tormented forever and ever. Amen. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Richard Schroeder, and he will be followed by J. Colhagen.
Richard Schroeder, retired physician. We talked a little bit about the last meeting about the risk of wireless radiation to human and environmental health. But I think we need to understand a bit more about the telecommunications industry that uses wireless radiation and how it's regulated. It seems that the regulations are very industry-friendly indeed. Federal law gave the FCC the sole power to regulate wireless radiation risks. The FCC is a very improbable organization to serve that role of protecting humans. It specializes in technical issues that make the communication system function and promote it, not in the health and safety of the individuals who use it. Such evaluations and safety regulations that do exist certainly have not evolved with the industry. The FCC's rules target just one health hazard, the possibility that wireless radiation can cause immediate thermal damage by overheating the skin the way a microwave oven heats food. This is done using a cute little test dummy. Yeah, it's up on the screen there. Proper human evaluations have never been done. And all we know for sure from the FCC's SAR, or specific absorption rate test, is that your cell phone and wireless devices will not harm plastic within 6 minutes. And this is in pretty sharp contrast to many other studies, including that of the NIH's National Toxicology Program, which showed severe harms in animal testing with brain damage at even 1/100th of the dose used for humans. So interestingly, our favorite organization, the World Health Organization, who loves us so much they want to control our lives, played a part in this dramatic misplacement of risk assessment. That's because most countries have adopted the WHO's regulatory guidelines and electromagnetic frequency policies, which assume that negative health effects only occur when the levels of radiation are high enough to heat human tissue, which doesn't take into account long-term exposure to lower levels of radiation. Two other wireless presences in our lives we should understand better to get a grasp of this long-term exposure are 5G and smart meters. 5G introduced a whole host of additional risks by adding 3,000 new frequencies, all in the short millimeter range. That's in contrast to just 5 new frequencies that 4G added to the 20 that already existed under the second generation and third generation, or 2G and 3G. Your home smart meter is a dual-use technology, meaning it had military use development, whose initials stand for Smart Military Armaments in Residential Technology. It's a hugely concerning issue for its invasion of individual privacy because it serves to monitor every electronic aspect of our lives while throwing off tons of radiation in the process with constantly pulsing signals. And more on that later, but I wanted to save just a second or two to just voice my support for those who may be coming after me with the project for the community gardens. I happen to live in one of the caged communities where gardens are not allowed, so I would lend my support to that effort. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Jay Colhagen. He'll be followed by Nancy Hannigan.
Jay Collier for the record, commissioners, and again, everyone here. Hey, I'm speaking about the community gardens here. There's a need for them. You know, I'm speaking for the the people who I call urban farmers. These are the people that live in apartment buildings, gated communities, like Richard just said. People live in, I guess, mobile homes, mobile parks. I mean, these are all people that, and I guess other people who can't afford to have gardens, or these gardens are for people that that would just love to have a place that they can put some seeds in the ground and grow their own food. I'm back to community gardens are a gathering place. They're a gathering place for the community, for families and people from different religions, different values, different cultures. This is a place where they get together and work with the others on their food plots or their garden beds, and yeah, they have a good time doing it. I think we need stuff like this, some of these out here. Going back to, I think gardening is good therapy for your mind and for your soul. It's another healthy option for exercise. I know that it's good for like people like me that it's hard for me to get around, and it's just a good source of exercise. I think that if we make these community gardens, I think we can make some that are actually handicapped accessible. We can raise some gardens up so the handicapped people can they can get their hands dirty too and feel like they're part of the community. I walked 3 parks on Saturday. East Naples Community Park, I walked that, and looking for places, and I ran into a couple, and they were. I talked to them about what they thought about having a community garden, and they told me, well, we're only down here since from December to Easter. Oh, we're going to this. Well, I told them they put some seeds in the ground that by Easter that they'll have greens on their plate. What's another? I like to, I'm going to get with you, Dan, tomorrow, and we'll go over some of this stuff at that meeting tomorrow. And what I like to really say is, let's make Collier County, okay? Let's make Collier County the community garden capital of the world. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Saunders.
Yeah, before you leave the podium, sir.
Jay?
And I'm glad you're having a meeting with Commissioner Colwell, because my question was, I grew up gardening, and I went in an area that had a community garden. What are you thinking of in terms of locations and things like that?
Oh, East Naples, start.
I mean, is there a particular area?
Oh, yeah. I got him. I'll talk to Dan about that.
Great.
Tomorrow.
And then the other issue is, how do you make sure that the people that are doing the gardening are the ones that reap the benefits from it? So,
well, that's because you got a little gate there with a little key, a little combination, so the people can get in and do that.
I look forward to hearing from Commissioner Colwell.
I'm telling you, man, I got one in your. I see these gardens all over the place, man. I see them, the vineyards. I talked to John Dino over there. He's the president of Naples Optimist Club, and he said they'd be willing to fund some of that out there. They thought it was a real good idea. There's a lot of it. I see community gardens right outside this government complex out here. Your people can, or any people that work here can do their garden at lunchtime or something. I mean, I see them all over from Everglades City. I mean, all the way to North Naples, all the way to Immokalee. I see them in all your districts. I see these, include Marco, and like I said, Isle Capri. I mean, I see them all over, but I like to start with one so we can work the bugs out, Work the bugs out, and...
Thank you.
All righty.
Your next speaker is Nancy Hannigan. She'll be followed by Andrea Werder.
Good morning. I work at I garden at the community garden on Immokalee Road with Jay and a lot of other lovely people. And I think it's a wonderful idea to have different gardens around the communities, North Naples, South Naples, because I drive all the way from the airport up to Immokalee Road every other day just to water my garden or prune or whatever. Anyway, I think gardening is a wonderful extracurricular activity at this point, but in the future, given there are forces in the country that consider eating bugs a possible future for us, I think that having lots of community gardens and planting fruit trees around the Collier County, I think is a wonderful idea. And I've been studying nutrition my entire life, and I think eating vegetables, especially fresh ones, not month-old vegetables, is absolutely the best way to go. And when certain foods are not available to us, which could be part of our future as well, I would consider it prudent to allow Collier citizens to grow and raise their own food at their homes if they have space. And maybe the spaces need to be looked at. Okay, thank you very much.
Your next speaker is Andrea Werder. She'll be followed by Daniela Kreshian.
To plant a garden is to dream of tomorrow, but today we no longer have to dream it. We can do it. Today we can build it. Today we can grow it. Today we can come together and enjoy community gardening in Collier County. And just listening to the other speakers, I've been a member of a community garden, and what I like about it is it brings people together. I kind of think of that Beatles song, Come Together. What it does, thank you. Yes, that's exactly what it does. Christians, Jew, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. We all want to eat good food, and we all enjoy being in a beautiful environment with people in the community who actually care. We want to make Naples a better place. When I moved down here 5 years ago, what I loved about Naples is it had this perfect vibe of culture and organic farming. And I'm like, wow, this is a community that it's small enough where we can grow together, where we can support one another. And in this politically divisive climate, it's kind of sad, but the garden has been my haven to meet with all different walks of life. People are my friends that I never even knew were around. It just brings us together. And that is my message today. Just let's come together. Let's do something to support one another, physically, mentally, socially, and even financially. So thank you so much for considering this garden community. Bye-bye.
Your next speaker is Daniela, is it Kreshian? Kretschun. And she'll be followed on Zoom by James Reichert.
Yes, good morning. I'm the president of Collier Fruit Growers. It's a no-profit organization here in Naples for the last 45 years. And we, together with all the border, we decide to help the Collier County and the kids in Collier County to build gardens. And I start doing cooking classes. I'm a chef and a nutritionist at my daughter's school. And when I say, I would like to plant some trees to start, they say, we are not allowed because the law in Collier County. In Lee County, they have more than 50 gardens, and they harvest just in 2023 and 2024, 7,500 pounds of food, of vegetables who go in the cafeteria, and for there the kids are eating healthy vegetables. Here in Collier County, it's not allowed, and I don't understand why. Our vice president of the club start a garden in Everglades City, and it's helping kids mentally. Never in history of United States, they were not so sick like now. Like garden help to mental health, help kids reconnect with Mother Earth. They in the computer and in the iPad all the time. I don't think that is bad, but they need to balance a little bit nutrition, outside, and the computer. Then we are collaborating with Ave Maria to put a food garden there, and with IFIS. I would like to see what we can do here in Collier County for our school to have a program like in the Lee County, who already accomplished what they want in the last 3 years. That's this. Do you have any question? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, your final registered speaker for item 7 joins us on Zoom, James Reichert. Mr. Reichert, you're being prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do that at this time. I see you're unmuted, Mr. Reichert. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. And I'd like to express my appreciation for all the members of the county government that work so hard to make Collier County better. I'm calling today because the Growth Management Community Development Department that I've been dealing with as an owner builder, and the process of trying to get inspections on my little stupid kitchen remodel have been erroneous or egregious, at least in my opinion. They have a customer service number, which is 239-252-2400, and you call it and you leave it a message, and they say they'll get back to you in 8 hours, but I'm still waiting for months from 4 different phone calls for them to call me back. And I just want to bring this to your attention, as right now I can't schedule any of my inspections or do anything which is county requirements, and I'm trying to figure out how to wade through this process and get it resolved, other than just going ahead and ignoring what the county has to say. That's all I got, and thank you for your service.
And that was your final registered speaker for item 7.
Yeah, Major.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have someone on Zoom that was registered for a different item, which is now raising their hand as though they want to speak on this item. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to check this item out. Ms. Matthews, did you want to speak on public comment on general topics?
Hi, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Wonderful, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm an active volunteer and the PTO president at Sable Palm Elementary. It's located in Golden Gates Estate area. This school is a Leader in Me school. I wanted to share that very recently we restarted the school garden beds, and both the students and the staff are not only embracing this activity, they are so eager to do more. And the students have been asking for a gardening club, cooking classes, increased hands-on gardening opportunities, and earth science-based experiments. Just in this short time of having the garden at Sable Palm, I'm seeing firsthand how the garden is so much more than growing plants. It is a laboratory on the campus that is incorporating nutrition, teamwork, sustainability, improves mental wellness, and embraces the core Collier County Public Schools curriculum standards, and most importantly is reconnecting the youth with the earth. My vision is to expand the availability of creating new gardens in Collier schools and communities. We would like your support to collaborate with county leadership to design an equitable and sustainable program model and continue to keep Collier County the most amazing place to live. Thank you.
And that should conclude public comment. Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 9, advertised public hearings. Item 9A and 9B are companion items. I will read them both in before we get started. Item 9A is a recommendation to approve an ordinance amending the Collier County Growth Management Plan to create the GMA Commercial Subdistrict within the rural Golden Gate Estates sub-element of the Golden Gate Area Master Plan to allow 125,000 square feet of gross floor area of commercial intermediate and indoor air-conditioned mini self-storage, uses of which up to 80,000 square feet of gross floor area may consist of indoor air-conditioned mini and self-storage. The subject property, consisting of 9.84 plus minus acres, is located on the south side of Immokalee Road, approximately 773 feet west of the intersection of Immokalee Road and Randall Boulevard in Section 27, Township 48 South, Range 27 East. Its companion item 9B requires that commission members provide ex parte disclosure should a hearing be held on this item, and participants are required to be sworn in. This is a recommendation to approve an ordinance rezoning property to a commercial planned unit development zoning district for a project to be known as GMACPUD to allow 125,000 square feet of gross floor area of commercial intermediate and indoor air-conditioned mini and self-storage uses, of which up to 80,000 square feet of gross floor area may consist of indoor air-conditioned mini and self-storage on 9.84 plus acres of property located south of Immokalee Road, approximately 772 feet west of the intersection of Immokalee Road and Randall Boulevard in Section 27, Township 48 South, Range 27 East, Collier County, Florida. Commissioners, ex parte, and then we'll be sworn in for the court reporter for all participants.
Commissioner Cowell.
Yes, Chairman, I have, for 9B and 9C, I have meetings and emails.
Mr. Chairman, I have the same for items 9A and 9B and 9C.
Commissioner McDaniel.
And I do as well, meetings and calls on 9A, or 9B and 9C.
Commissioner Castro.
9B and 9C, I have meetings.
And I as well have meetings and emails on both items.
Commissioners, we're on 9A and 9B.
9A and B. I do
Okay.
on, we all do on 9B and 9C.
Okay, well, we'll get C again when we get to C. All right, we need all participants that are to stand up and be sworn in by the court reporter, please.
Precedence, yeah. I know, like you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here with me is Michael Sadi, who's the applicant. He's standing behind me, or kneeling behind me. Norm Trebelcock is the transportation consultant. I noticed that Tim Hall is in the background. He's the environmental consultant. And Russ Wire, who is not on here, and I apologize to Russ, but he did the market analysis. So the blue star there shows the location. You can see Randall Boulevard as well as Immokalee Road. This is a little more close-up perspective. You can see the canal on the east side and the three parcels that make up this application. As the county manager indicated, there are two companion items, a small-scale growth management plan amendment and a companion rezone to a commercial planned unit development. I just want to give you a little bit of background. A portion of this site, approximately 3 acres, which is right here, was the subject that's known as Pond 8. That is currently a drainage facility for Immokalee Road, county-owned. Was in consideration for a parcel swap, which was independently evaluated by Jacobs Engineering on behalf of the county, and it was determined that the swap of the Pond 8 site, consisting of about 3 acres, with Tract 52, Unit 23, I'll show you that parcel in just a minute, which consists of 5 acres, was very adequate and of benefit to Collier County. Tract 52, which is the parcel identified in purple here, is again a full 2 acres larger than the existing pond, allowing for a wet detention facility. Also, immediately adjacent to the canal, allows for an outfall to that canal. This aerial shows the proposed improvements. The canal here on the north side of Immokalee Road, the water goes under Immokalee Road and will be designed to follow that yellow dashed line down to this new pond site, which provides a great deal more storage and also allows discharge directly to that pond site. That was approved by the board at this point. I think it was 2 years ago.
November 2021.
November of 2021, thank you. This is just a copy of the Golden Gate Estates Rural Future Land Use Map. Shows the location of the subject property. This is the zoning map. As I indicated, the property is presently zoned E Estates. This is the county's PUD map. It shows the adjacent PUDs, BCHD right here, the Randall Curve PUD right here, and Orange Blossom Ranch is up in here, and Orange Tree is, of course, the settlement areas, these 4 sections right here. This is the PUD master plan. We did work with the staff to locate 2 means of ingress and egress. That's a right in, right out, right in, right out. And that's sufficiently located to the west, both of them, in order to not interfere with the turn lane, which will provide access to the improved Randall Boulevard, and I'll show you that in just a moment. We've located our preserves along the perimeter, providing additional buffering to the estate's lots to the south. The TIS indicates a total PM peak hour trip generation of, I'm looking for it here, 173 trips. 389, I'm sorry, 389. Yeah, right, sorry, right here. That's why I marked it, so I wouldn't mess it up, and I messed it up. Staff recommendations for both the small-scale GMPA and CPUD are for approval. The Planning Commission met on February 1st, and a motion to approve failed by a vote of 3-2. There were only 5 members present at that meeting. Probably the biggest issue discussed was a demonstration of need under the Florida statutes to support a comprehensive growth management plan amendment. These are the applicable sections of the Florida statutes, Chapter 163, and I'll get into a few more specifics, but A is the amount of land required to accommodate growth, in this case for commercial use. We're consistent with all of those measurements, and also to meet the projected permanent and seasonal population growth. The character of the undeveloped land, as it's located immediately on adjacent on Immokalee Road. We do have public facilities available. This does discourage urban sprawl. Golden Gate Estates is generally has been a single-use, low-density, very large, at one point purported to be the largest subdivision in the world. So by providing other opportunities for commercial activities, you are discouraging some of the negative impacts of sprawl, particularly causing the immediately surrounding area to get in their car and drive, to the west or significantly further to the east. There are job creation benefits, and J is what I just discussed about, the antiquated subdivision. This is a market analysis area shown in the circumference there, and you can see that this will serve a significant portion of Golden Gate Estates. Russ's analysis indicates that there is presently a supply of approximately 3,658,400 square feet, and that the demand through the horizon year of 2023 will be 3,834,211 square feet. So there is demand, and furthermore, we are below the allocation ratio that the county establishes for these types of market studies in terms of demand. We're at 0.99 in the horizon year. I wanted to show you this because I think it has bearing on this request. The county had done a improvement design several years ago now, and there is a first phase and then a second phase, and this is the first phase. And there's triple lefts here now in this first phase for folks heading down Randall and turning west on Immokalee Road. And as I had indicated to you, that our access points here were designed so as not to impact with a right turn lane for folks turning right onto Randall. You can see there'll be some pretty significant improvements in the initial phase, phase 1, to this intersection. Phase 2, it's not funded, and I don't really know when this will occur, but phase 2 is actually a partial flyover, and you can see that right here. Traffic from Randall will fly over Immokalee Road, and then you can see this deceleration lane here to enter the travel lane on Immokalee Road, which in this design significantly extends into where the subject property is, albeit on the other travel lane, the north travel lane heading west. So we have a staff recommendation of approval subject to the condition that an opaque wall or fence be installed along the southern perimeter of the PUD, 6-foot opaque wall or fence. We agree to the condition, except that we don't think a wall or fence needs to be required right here because that's the county drainage pond, so nobody will be impacted there. But we would agree to that condition as it extends across the majority of the parcels. With that, I'm open to answer any questions. I do want to introduce my client, Michael Sadi, who would like to say a couple of words.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michael Sadi. I've been a full-time resident of Collier County for 38 years. And as most of you know, I've been involved with quality developments throughout that time. Just real brief about the context of the swap agreement. We met with staff and with the county when they were discussing the expansion of Immokalee Road. And the pond that you guys own, the drainage pond, was small and inadequate to accommodate the expansion. We had a parcel, the 5-acre parcel that was referenced earlier. We offered to swap that with the county parcel, and then your staff did a great job negotiating the improvements as well. So as part of the swap agreement, we had to, once it's done, we'll do the improvements and the drainage improvements all the way to the new parcel, the 5 acres. It also will provide you with a discharge to a canal, which you don't have now. And the parcel you have right now is considered dry storage, and the one we will swap with you with, the 5-acre parcel, will be wet storage, which we have to excavate. So this is a really win-win for the county, for the citizens of Collier County, the taxpayers, for us. It's a good project for everyone. Very few people would consider those parcel fronting Immokalee Road to be prime for residential, especially when the road gets expanded. Most of the traffic is going to be local traffic. It's going to be generated locally. There's not going to be anybody trying to go there to, to get a sandwich or something if that becomes the usage out there. So we appreciate your support and ready to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Mr. Saunders.
I do have a couple quick questions. The swap, has that already been completed, or is that?
The swap agreement, Commissioner Saunders, was approved by the county board unanimously on November 2021.
Right. But I guess the question is that swap is not conditioned on this approval?
No.
The swap has occurred?
The swap has occurred, yes, correct.
And then I was a little confused on the total square footage of commercial. It looks like the total square footage is 125,000 square feet.
Yes, Commissioner.
But I wasn't sure if there was an additional 80,000.
No, that's included in the.
That's included. Okay.
The 80,000 is included in the 125. The total number is 125.
And then what are, I'm not sure if this is for you or for staff, but what are the potential commercial uses?
I'll let Bob address that.
Well, they're generally convenience commercial, but I have the list of uses right here. So you have, office uses and retail uses, childcare.
I guess what I would ask, without going through that list, number 28 says eating places. Would there be any potential for like fast food or something that generates a tremendous amount of traffic? Is there any potential for that, or what do you think?
Yes, under that SIC code 5812, fast food is allowed. Obviously, it'll depend on the market. You know, bars are not, freestanding bars are not allowed. We didn't include that use, but eating places are.
Are there any other high traffic generating types of businesses? That looks like probably the only one that would have some potential for some.
I agree. I think everything else is, you know, with 125,000 square feet, you're not going to generate a great deal of neighborhood commercial traffic, and it'll come from the surrounding area. I think as was indicated, people aren't going to drive a long distance to get here from somewhere else.
Would there be an issue with eliminating fast food?
Yes, Commissioner. Just for the record, I mean, if you had like a McDonald's per se, the people gonna stop at that McDonald's would be local traffic going home and coming back. It won't be someone driving from Naples to hit that McDonald's. So we still maintain that this traffic is going to be local.
All right. I was just kind of curious as to what some of the uses were. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sadi, I have a question for you. So in lieu of the land swap, what's the monetary value that was negotiated by staff for the improvements that benefit the county?
It's all, we bear the whole expense of all of it. The county does not pay anything towards the improvements, does not pay anything towards the excavation of the pond, does not pay anything towards all of it. You know, the county just will benefit from trading 3 acres of land for 5 acres of land, getting all the improvements, which are way north of $1 million in terms of the costs.
That's what I was asking. What was the value of the improvements that you're going to do for the stormwater?
Once we dig the pond, it's going to be substantially more than $1 million.
Great, thank you. And are those improvements subject to this growth management plan being approved?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, they're subject to the swap, so that will have to occur. I'm sure the staff won't approve the SDP until those improvements are done, or they'll put a condition on the SDP.
Clarify for the public there.
Yep.
I mean, the swap will not occur officially. I mean, you agreed in principle to the swap and you signed an agreement unanimously in November 2021, but the official swap will occur once all the improvements have taken place and all the things were done with the proper agencies and the permitting, et cetera, et cetera. And then once everything is finished and accepted, then, and the county can verify that all these things are exactly what they need to be, then the official transfer of title, if you would take place between us and the county.
Great. Thank you, sir. Troy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 2 registered public speakers for this item. Brian McMahon, he'll be followed by Tom Henning.
Either way.
Good morning. My name is Brian McMahon. I live about a block and a half away from where this project is going to be. We have zoning rules. We have the land development code, growth management. And the reason they have these is so people have an expectation of what's going to happen before they invest their money in property, or if they want to buy property to enjoy a certain lifestyle. We're not talking about a little building here. This is a Home Depot-sized building that you want to put on residential lots. People moved out to the estates because they wanted to get away from that. They don't want to hear trucks backing up at 2 o'clock in the morning, beep, beep, beep. They don't want to hear car stereos. They don't want to hear car alarms. They want to have peace and quiet. That's it. The people whose houses are directly behind this, who's going to compensate them because the house value is going to drop into the toilet? Who's going to want to buy that house that 50 feet away is a 125,000 square foot building? Who makes them whole? This is what zoning laws are for. You know, it's just, it would be one thing if it was a smaller building, but like I say, the size of this thing, I believe it was 2 stories, correct? Correct me. This is completely inappropriate for the area. I didn't move out there to have this thing, you know, around the corner from my house. Like you said, there's fast food, there's auto parts stores on that list, there's all kinds of things that are going to go into that building. It is not appropriate for Golden Gate Estates. What about the parcels that are next to it? There's 70 feet between there and Wilson Boulevard. You're not going to be able to deny that commercial property after you gave these guys. So that whole corridor is going to be. Then the guy on the other side of Wilson Boulevard is going to go, hey, look at that. Why can't I develop my property commercial? We got to stop and look at Golden Gate Estates and stop just thinking that this is the place where we're going to build whatever we want. It's starting to look like we're going to make this Houston, Texas, where you want to build it, you go right ahead because you don't even need a permit. So I'm begging you guys, please leave our neighborhood alone. There's a lot of frustration already out here. I'm sure you've heard that people are talking about making a city because we're getting tired of it. This is a classic example here. This isn't a little doctor's office. Would you want a 125,000 square foot building in your neighborhood? If it was on Marco Island, people would be in here with pitchforks and torches, okay? Same with Pelican Bay. We've had enough. Please turn this thing down. If he wants to come up with something a little bit more reasonable, it's worth talking about, but this is not appropriate for Golden Gate Estates. Thank you.
Your next and final speaker on this item is Tom Henning.
I do. Commissioners, I've known Mr. Sani for decades. He's a man of his word. This is a true public benefit. When I was a commissioner, we would give impact fee credits for this swap and improvements. Now I see the board, what they're doing is something different with Collier Bay is one that stands out to me. But the improvements over there will actually mitigate some of the noise coming from Immokalee Road. You're going to have a ramp there. Those buildings will mitigate some of those noises. You're going to have a controlled access. If these were residential, you would have at least 3 separate accesses over there. So it's a benefit to the community. And when I was a commissioner, we encouraged commercial in Golden Gate Estates to serve the residents in Golden Gate Estates and the communities around there to shorten the trips. This is not a trip generator. It's an attractor, and it's not going to attract myself living in East Naples, Commissioner LaCastro's district, but it's going to attract those trips out there, which is a benefit not only to the community of Golden Gate, but the benefit to the community as a whole. When you start doing proper land planning and placing uses that the people in the area is going to use. Thank you for your time, and I encourage you to approve this unanimously. Thank you.
That was our final speaker.
Commissioner Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have known Michael Sadi for many, many years, and obviously his entire team. So this is a very difficult one for me because I feel the pain of the folks in the neighborhood that are concerned about their quality of life. And I also understand that this is there's a public benefit here, but I think that the real issue is, are we negatively impacting the neighborhood? And I haven't quite decided how I'm going to vote on this issue. I'm still going to listen to my colleagues here, but I have an issue with that. I know we've changed a lot of the comp plan as it applies to individual lots along Immokalee Road, and I hear the complaints from the community, and so I have some issues with this, and I'm looking forward to hearing from my colleagues on this.
Can I interject something, Commissioner Sanders? The gentleman lives on the north side of the road, and it's interesting that the folks that live on the adjacent property, not one of them came into the community hearing, community meeting, or the planning commission, or here today to show opposition to this project. The benefit to them is actually better than if it's not developed this way. If it's developed with single-family estate homes, you wouldn't have any requirements to build any buffer or any wall or any type of noise barrier or anything else. You could just build the house, put the minimum amount of landscaping required, and done. We're giving them a humongous amount of buffer plus a opaque wall to the height of 6 feet or so. So that's actually it's an improvement for the immediate neighbors. And interesting that nobody showed up, and you only have one speaker telling you that he doesn't like this. And I don't even know when this gentleman moved to town, but this is a Mockley Road. This is not the heart of the estates where you're in the middle of 50 lots. This is right on the Mockley Road, which as the town grew over the last 40 years, you know, the character of the neighborhood changed, the character of everything changed. And there are services that will be required in that neighborhood because these areas are growing, as you know, with RV Town and all the other things. So there will be the needs for these required services. And the immediate neighbors, not one of them came in and objected. That's relevant to say.
Let me ask you a couple quick questions. Then, in terms of when was the application made for this this change?
We've been in the works on this since November of 2021. We've had to go through the motion. We've had to go through planning commission. We have to go through the staff, the engineering, all that work.
I understand. The reason that I asked that question is I had asked the board to impose a moratorium on these comprehensive land use changes on this segment of road, actually on most of the Mockley Road from I-75 eastward. But I made it clear that I wasn't looking to impact existing applications.
This is 2 years before that.
I understand, Mr. Siddiq. and so I became very concerned about this, but also recognizing that this was a pre-application long before I had made that recommendation. And then I would ask staff, has there been any communication from the residents on that, I guess that's the south side of Mockley Road where this project is?
Mike Bosey, Planning and Zoning Director. Staff has not received any comments.
And I assume that the neighbors would have been notified?
Most definitely.
Would they have been notified about this hearing today?
Yes, sir.
Right. And you've gotten nothing?
Nothing.
All right. Well, that answers my questions. I can support this. It's still consistent with what I had asked the board to consider some time ago in terms of future applications. And so I think your explanation certainly gets me over the hump. I certainly would hope that if there's fast food there or something that generates a lot of traffic, that our traffic folks take that into consideration in any kind of approvals and, you know, in terms of impacts on that roadway. But thank you.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yeah, can we hear from staff? I'd like to hear from staff, and then I have a couple of comments that I'd like to make.
Mike Bosey, Planning and Zoning Director. As Mr. Mulhare indicated within his presentation, staff is making a recommendation of support for both the GMP and the PUD. The Planning Commission felt that it did not meet the needs analysis requirements for a growth management plan, and where staff's perspective was that it was a public benefit that was also being provided for, and one of the related to the stormwater pond and the access to the canal. The other point, and it was highlighted, was if this was to be developed as 3 individual estates lots, those would be 3 individual driveway curb cuts onto Mockley Road, and that's not the type of arrangement that would promote a better traffic flow for this individual area. For all those reasons, and staff is of supporting of having the opaque fence or wall ending prior to the stormwater pond.
I would think it would have to be a wall. We were talking about noise reduction.
Yes.
And the opaque fence won't provide much of that.
Comments, Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah, well, I do. I think probably, and we've talked about this as far as I'll bring it up again at the end of our meeting here today, but it's past time for us to review the Golden Gate Master Plan. And we've already got a committee convened, the East 951 Horizon Study 2.0, that's out there that we may be able to bequeath that task to and have a review of the Golden Gate, specifically the rural segment of the Golden Gate Master Plan. There are a lot of intersections. There are a lot of properties that really should be reviewed to decide what should be put on those pieces of property as opposed to the spot zoning that sometimes happens as we go forward. We haven't reviewed the Golden Gate Master Plan for, I think we adopted the last one in 2019 was the last time that we did that. So my main concern was twofold. Number one, do we have sufficient right-of-way for the expansion and improvements to the intersection of Immokalee and Randall Boulevard?
And Ms. Scott could speak to that more intelligently, but just from my conversations with her, she has indicated that we do have all the necessary right-of-way.
Okay. Is that correct, Ms. Scott? I get 2 thumbs up on that. My main concern, and I'd like to ask this, and maybe the applicant as well, if a rezone is consummated here, would you give consideration to prohibitive language within the PUD to allow conversion from commercial to high-density residential?
Yeah, we have no objection to that. If you're referring to Live Local, Commissioner, this predates that by a few years, so we have no intention of doing residential.
I understand that you've shared that with me, that you have no intention of it, but someday you may not be here. Somebody would buy this piece of property.
I
And
hope to be here for a while.
yeah, we hope you're here for a long time, sir. But I would like to have that language inserted into the PUD.
I have no objection to
just to prohibit that.
Mr. Chairman, could I get a little clarification? I'm not, Commissioner McDaniel, you're looking for a prohibition, is that what?
Correct.
And on
prohibitive language.
And I'm wondering if that would have to be more of a deed restriction as opposed to a PUD item.
Either way, however it can be accomplished, whether it be a deed restriction.
A deed restriction is hard to change. A PUD is relatively easy to change.
Commissioners, I'm going to ask Heidi Ashton to come up here. She provides counsel to the Planning Commission, has a couple decades of experience with growth management to address how we could accomplish what you're addressing right now.
Good morning. I'm Heidi Ashton, Managing Assistant County Attorney at the Horseshoe Office. There are 2 options. You could do a deed restriction in favor of the county, but I think that you would probably want something to allow the board to make a change in the future because 30, 50 years down the road, there might be different needs in that area. Or you could put a prohibition in the PUD. I think either way would really work. I just would like clarification on what you mean by high-density residential.
You want to answer the high-density question?
Well, the high density would be a comparative use for the conversion that's by right for the Live Local Act. And so, we can do both. I'd be happy with both. I would like to have as much prohibition on the conversion to high density as is possible. So if Commissioner Saunders agrees, I originally suggested a deed restriction because that's more prohibitive and considerably harder to overturn. But someone in my discussions, I think we discussed yesterday about language specifically in the PUD. So either way is fine.
Well, let me throw something out. This is a question for the county attorney. We can pass an ordinance that says X, which is what the PUD would be, just a simple ordinance. But the Live Local Act, I think, trumps our ordinances and our land use and our zoning. So my gut feeling is we can say in the PUD, you can't do X, but that's not going to prohibit someone from complying with Live Local. That trumps.
And I just used that as an example.
Well, no, man, it's a good example, but I'm saying that's why I was thinking a deed restriction, because I agree. I wouldn't want to see 350 units, apartment units there.
Right. So deed restriction's fine. And if the applicant will sit still for a deed restriction in that regard, then And do we have to have specific density or language with regard to high density?
I can work that out with the applicant as to the number, but I guess you're probably looking at 16 units an acre or over, which is the conversion that's allowed, I believe, in the GMP currently.
If we can keep away from a specific trigger that would allow the conversion at all, just not to be converted to high-density residential. If they wanted to tear down the buildings and build 3 houses and that was conducive, that's something that could be given consideration to. I'm just talking about apartments.
Oh, apartment rentals?
Yes.
Okay. Also, it might give you some comfort that the legislature did make a change to the Live Local Act, and that'll be effective unless the governor signs it earlier, about May 8th. And the new regulations do tie the eligibility of Live Local to our land development regulations. So that would provide some further limitation, but there is a window where developers can elect to use the old rules.
And I'm okay with, I don't want it to be ambiguous, but the applicant's okay with the language of a deed restriction in high density and that prohibition. I'll be satisfied with that.
May I?
Sure.
I'd be happy to work with Heidi. I think it's something along the lines of residential density above that allowed by the current estate zoning, 3 units, is prohibited, and the applicant shall establish a deed restriction in favor of Collier County with this limitation.
That would be perfect.
And that you would want a timing, 30 days of ordinance approval, or what timing would work?
A little more. How much do you think you need? You got to get your attorney to do that.
Yeah, I mean, whatever practical. I mean, we still have to go do the site improvement work. That's going to be a few months to just run the pipes and dig the pond and all that. So we have time before the swap is official. So
I would say just maybe a little more time, maybe 90 days.
90 days? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We'll put that
I'm
in.
fine with that.
Commissioner Colwell.
Well, it kind of answers some of my questions with that, Commissioner McDaniel. The other one was, I was just trying to do the math, what was left. I knew at 125,000, 80 of that is part of that large number, 100.
if it's done, it may not happen. But
No, I know, I'm just saying, so what is left outside of that particular part that is still
So-
developable, I guess?
Yeah,
For these
so-
other items, these 30, 40 items that we saw in front of us.
Let me just get something that's a little. So, looking at the PUD here, if there was a market for the self-storage and you consumed the 80,000 square feet, probably would locate that somewhere in the rear of the property, because the exposure to Immokalee Road, the visibility, would lend itself towards other uses. That would create a buffer to the residential because very low traffic, no noise, no light, no odors. And then anything else that might go in would likely be along the frontage.
Right.
And, it's up to an additional 45,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial type uses.
Thank you.
Mr. Saunders.
Mr. Mulhare, I just noticed that there's a third access point. Yeah.
That is in the future, and I think I'm assuming that was requested by staff, but that is a potential connection. It says potential future interconnection, depending on what happens on the adjacent parcel.
Okay. What roadway is that?
There's no roadway there. That's another. Here, let me get to my very bad exhibit of where the wall would go. Because I do need to mention that the wall would stop here, since this is the parcel where the connection is. So I overextended the wall inadvertently, but here's where that connection is, Commissioner Saunders. And then further to the west is Wilson. So let me get to something that can show a little bit more. Here's Wilson. And we're talking right here and this parcel right here.
And that's a residential parcel.
It is. It's Golden Gate Estate Zone.
So the expectation for having that is that would become commercial as well, so there would be connections between the two.
In the event, I think staff wanted it, in the event it did go commercial, to have an interconnection, which would be of a beneficial traffic design.
Well, that's part of the concern.
You don't know what somebody else might.
No, I understand, but that's part of the concern that I've had is that, and the speaker that was opposed to this said this, you approve this here, and then the next lot becomes commercial as well, and you've got on your diagram a connection that anticipates that. And that concerns me.
If I may, Trinity Scott, Transportation Management Services Department Head. Sir, we ask for this because this is your only opportunity to have this as a potential interconnection. So that parcel adjacent could get redeveloped or it could be developed in the future. I don't know what it would be, but even if it's a residential home, they may want to partake in what is occurring, whether it's a restaurant or whatever, and they would also be able to have that interconnection where they could gate it in the future and be able to come back and never have to get on a Immokalee Road. So depending on how it may develop, we're not forcing the interconnection today, but this is your only opportunity to have an interconnection on this parcel.
I'm not so sure I would agree with that.
They would have to come back for a PUD amendment in the future, which I can tell you from my experience here is very difficult if, say, this parcel was completely built out. I have no hammer to require someone to come back in to amend that PUD. So we put this as a potential. If the adjacent land use is not compatible in the future, we would not exercise that. But not knowing what the future holds, we try to do that. Immokalee Road is one of our most important roadways. Being able to have interconnections, minimizing driveway cuts is very important to us to maintain the capacity of that roadway.
And I understand that, but it doesn't guarantee commercial crawl. It's just a big what if.
It does not. It just allows us to have a seat at the table should something occur at that adjacent parcel.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Commissioner McDaniel.
And just this one point is, as far as the traffic generation goes, Commissioner Saunders, you mentioned that earlier on. I perceive this as more of a collector for local traffic and services for the immediate community, as opposed to a draw of traffic. So,
want to make a motion?
And with that, as long as we're okay, County Attorney, with the language on the deed restriction / PUD, I'll make a motion for approval with that adjustment.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion by Commissioner McDaniel, second by Commissioner Colwell. All in favor with the adjusted language, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Court reporter break.
Yes, sir. Court reporter break.
Good. It's 10:37. Let's come back at 10:45.
Chair, you have a live mic.
All right, that brings us to
That brings us to item 9C. This item requires that commission members provide ex parte disclosure, and all participants are required to be sworn in. This is a recommendation to approve a rezoning ordinance for Genesis CPUD to allow up to 65,000 square feet of gross floor area of commercial uses on 10.51 plus minus acres of property located in the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Pine Ridge Road and I-75 in Section 7, Township 49 South, Range 26 East, Collier County, Florida. Commissioners, so start with ex parte.
I have meetings and emails on 9C. Commissioner Colwell.
All right, we'll try this again. 9C, I have meetings and emails.
Commissioner LaCastro.
I have emails on 9C.
I'm coming.
Commissioner Saunders.
So we're finally on 9C?
Yes.
I've got some emails and meetings.
Emails and meetings, and Commissioner McDaniel.
And then I have as well 9C meetings.
All right, we need all participants to stand up and be sworn in by the court reporter.
I want the record to reflect that Garrett put his hand over his heart, didn't raise his hand.
He was pledging.
He pledged allegiance to the swearing.
Mr. Ivanovich?
Thank you. For the record, Rich Ivanovich on behalf of the applicant. Commissioner LaCastro, just to have you update your disclosure, you and I did.
Yeah, as you walked up to the podium here, I was like, yeah, we did speak yesterday, so I actually had one meeting on 9C. Brief.
This project, as in your packet and as we met in 101, is for a car dealership on property within an activity center. We would have been on the summary agenda because there was no neighborhood opposition. Staff was recommending approval, and we had a unanimous approval from the recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. You did receive a letter of objection from Mr. Byrant, who is opposed to an access agreement that was entered into by all of the property owners, which would allow this parcel to construct a frontage road across this parcel and then ultimately connect up to Kramer Drive. My client also owns this parcel. The only parcel he doesn't own is this one in the middle. There is a settlement agreement and a cross-access agreement signed by the property that Mr. Byrant is claiming he has an ownership interest in and is now opposed to the project. I could go into a much greater detailed presentation. However, since we would have been on the summary agenda, if the board prefers, we can just have Mr. Byrant come up and raise whatever issues he wants to raise, and I can discuss those issues, or I can do a full presentation. It's at the pleasure of the Planning Commission. I mean, the Board of County Commissioners.
Let's hear the objection.
Mr. Byron, yeah, do you want to come? You need to come on microphone, sir.
For the record, Garrett FX Byrant, okay? I own the property adjacent to Mr. Zeller, okay? That property is one of 6 tracts that I filed criminal charges against my own in-laws for something they did many years ago, and until the death of my brother-in-law when I was handed Zeller's package 2 weeks ago, which I gave to the county manager. If you look at page 35, that's when I realized they were chopping more and more off of my little piece of property. And I only had 5 acres. And like an idiot, I admitted that I did an idiotic thing. I actually talked to Kathleen Pasadomo about using my property under her new live where you work concept, whereby that 5-acre tract would have 2 6-story buildings on it. The problem is, and I'm looking right at Bert Saunders, because years ago when Bert was a state representative, he had problems with all of these easements out in Golden Gate Estates. And using his left or right hand, he magically vacated all the easements through a process that Jeff Klatzkow told me was not actually legal. So I said, I got peripheral. I know it's a long time ago, Bert. And if I got to do the actual presentation I did on this in 1987, I brought in Dudley Goodlett. Everybody, 4 of the 5 commissioners were indicted for bribery. Remember that? Only one commissioner was not taking bribes. Okay.
Just for the record, I was not on the commission.
I know, that's why I
They were
said.
indicted and for bribery, so just.
No, he was. It gets 3 minutes. How can you explain? 1987, it was so ridiculous that I got it when Dudley Goodlett was my attorney and Hess was my end user for a gas station. I got up right there and got on my knees and begged for my gas station because Bob Hard told me, hey, if you want to do this, you're going to have to take care of those guys. I said, well, how about if I just beg? And he walked out the door, and they gave him a gas station. Actually, they gave him several gas stations on the Immokalee Road on his property. So, and God bless the man. I'm sure he's in heaven in Australia somewhere. But in any case, getting back to the Zeller thing, if you look at the page 35 that I gave to the county manager, it'll show that I've already had a big chunk taken out of my property by proposed off-ramp needs of the county. And I was enlightened even more when I just met right here. I got a plan. If I had this thing lit up, might save a lot of trouble. But I was never notified legally of any of this stuff. But this plan shows I-75, okay? This is what they call a plan for a diverging diamond design. I had never heard of this. This is a plan that was used in Sarasota where they have 2 more roads creating a diamond right across the interstate. And I'll show it to you when they get up and do. I want to see what their presentation is so I can not object to his plan. There's problems that have to do with traffic. And I'm just as guilty. Actually, I am more guilty than anybody else relative to condominiums and cars. 26,000 cars are on the road outside this building because of projects that I proposed and developed on different family levels. So that's it. Now, I'd like to hear what Mr. Zeller's attorney, who is not my attorney now, but periodically he pops in and out of representing different people on the same or similar projects. Gets very confusing, when you don't know who is suing you, okay? That's it. That's the whole 9 yards. Any questions?
No, thanks. Mr. Yovanovich, could you just explain to us where the access is?
Sure. I think what Mr. Byron was talking about in the old Golden Gate Estate days, they had bisecting and perimeter easements, which is where this arrow is. This would be the bisecting easement that would have brought traffic across all of these parcels, connect with Kramer, and then ultimately to get you to the traffic signal. What we have is a cross-access easement across. This would be Mr. Byron's parcel. Here's the easement we agreed to. And this is the parcel, that my client also owns. And then ultimately to connect to the existing Kramer Drive to get to Pine Ridge Road. That's the purpose of the settlement agreement, was to eliminate this bisecting easement on the parcel that Mr. Byron is claiming he somehow has an ownership interest. All I know is the owner of this parcel signed a cross-access easement for access to be moved to the south of the property, and then the south of this property, so that you have probably a better development pad under the scenario for Mr. Byron's family's parcel, or whoever owns that parcel.
Oh, okay, that's whoever owns a parcel. I love that when he doesn't tell you who signed a document on my property. I would like to know that because I have no idea.
I will tell you who signed the document.
Okay,
I
good.
have it right here. Okay, give me 2 seconds to wake up my iPad.
Oh, he's looking. Commissioner McDaniel.
Well, that was going to be my question, is to who effectuated the document in the first place? Is there a valid, and maybe it's a question of staff, is there a valid cross easement agreement in place?
The answer is yes, there is. I provided to staff. It was signed by Terrell H.
Cheryl H., that's my ex-wife. We own the
Brzezinski as
property
trustee
together,
of the
okay?
land trust that owns the property. So yes, and it's been
See,
provided
there it
to
is.
county staff.
That old law, it's a trust whereby in my divorce, we got the property 50-50. Okay, now whatever she was signing to, I don't even know because I'm never informed of anything. And the blueprints I got that were handed to me that I gave to Amy, this 35 pages, when my daughter handed me the blueprint, she said, Sam is dead. Now, Sam was also her parrot. I said, your parrot's dead? No, your brother-in-law's dead. That Samuel Hubschman died 2 weeks ago. Wasn't in the newspaper. He was the president of our company, and I sued him 2 weeks before, basically under the new criminal fraud relative to trust manipulations. They would sell properties when they needed it to put like in your giant cement problem at the corner of Santa Barbara and Davis Boulevard, which next week I'm filing a suit against my brother-in-law for $32 million that was misappropriated from other PUDs. I had 6 of them altogether that I created. So this is what we're walking into is a shitstorm of like easements, and the biggest problem, I'm telling you something, is the traffic, okay? And when you think you can build something, if you don't build it, I got this approved in 1987. I've been battling with all the neighbors who are figuring, hey, give me $1 million, I'll let you go through the middle of what is legally or not an easement. But in any case, this is the whole idea of this diverging triangle, and I'm looking at it. I'd love to put it on the scope because when Mike Bosey says this is what it looks like, and basically Jamie Cook said exactly the same thing. They drew a line across Pine Ridge Road, across the ramps of both the north and southbound I-75, and came back out again. I'm looking at it and said, wow, it looks like spaghetti. But it's not I don't know if it's elevated. I don't believe it is. But I'd really like to see an explanation of what is the plan, the long-range plan that's going to occur there relative to I-75. They've already taken about somewhere around $3 million worth of my property just in additional off-ramp designs. But it's now skewed by the fact that my property is going to be in litigation for I have no idea how long. I just started this thing under the new law where it actually is a criminal offense for you to manipulate a trust for your own financial benefit, even if it's long range. And right now, as of this today, I learned that all the cement that's been crunched up on Santa Barbara and Davis, that my ex-brother-in-law is attempting to charge it to the dead Bobby Cadenhead's sons. They were supposed to be paying for all that crunching up that Bert wanted, which was a great idea. And most of that cement out there is just old buildings from downtown Naples or stuff that was illegally hauled out of Bonita, our mine in Bonita.
Mr.
Thank
Bryant?
you. Yes.
We're trying to focus here on this Genesis.
It's a great idea. Go right ahead. I'll just sit there and I'll get up and speak whenever you're all done showing me what I already know, okay?
Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you.
Well, I had a question for Garrett.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
You look at the map that's up there on the wall. You understand that this cross-access easement is not the old easement that Commissioner Saunders waved both hands and made go away a long time ago. But you know that easement, that cross.
That arrow is.
Garrett.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Look at me, Garrett.
Yes.
Right here. Okay.
Gotcha.
The easement that goes across whoever, whether you own it or the trust or whoever owns it, that easement's not being utilized, and there is, who changed the?
I'm sorry, I was going to show you the actual master plan to show you it's gone. That will help you.
I was making a point.
I'll go back, sorry.
Thank you, right there. That the original easements that bisected all of the Golden Gate Estates lots, Garrett, went away a long time ago.
Oh, you might want to talk to Jeff Klatzka about that because
I have, and someone has executed a valid cross-access agreement where it's where the arrow shows proposed access now. And my understanding is the improvements for the diverging diamond at Pine Ridge Road will not require any additional right-of-way from these pieces. So
That'd be great, but that is what I'm hearing. That's one of the possible proposals. There's supposed to be another 3 northbound lanes at Pine Ridge Road heading north on Pine Ridge Road. So I don't know where they're going to get the stuff from other than they've been taking chunks out of me. They've already taken and not built anything on the first 2 takings, which you will see on the bigger blueprint that Mr. Yovanovich has got there.
we're done with that.
Okay.
Pine Ridge can only go east and west.
It doesn't anymore.
Correct. Until you see those 2 spaghetti things, I'll show you when I get over to the other side, the dark side. Ooh.
I don't really know if I'm supposed to talk yet or not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead and talk about this slide there.
Okay, this is the actual PUD master plan that shows you that the access is along the southern perimeter of the boundary. The litigation that was settled was actually litigation over our using the bisecting easement. So, because we had no other way to go until we entered into this settlement agreement. So it's been settled.
The actual master plan is the recording information.
Okay, is that the one that, the new easement? Yeah. Okay. Heidi just pointed out to me, although I probably still can't read it, the easement is recorded in OR Book 6333, page 3491 of the official records. The settlement cross-access easement is in place.
What was the date on it?
It was actually executed by Ms. Brzezinski on February 12th, 2024.
See that? Just a few months ago, right? That's what people do stuff, and I don't look at what's recorded because I don't get any mail relative to my own properties. My trustees are my biggest enemy. That's true. I mean, it's sad but true.
The way I look at that, that's going to be a civil matter between you.
Yes, thank you. It is, yes.
So with that, we're requesting that the Board of County Commissioners approve our requested rezone of the property, consistent with staff's recommendation of approval and the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you. Now, I was going to comment that we can't really ferret out these legal issues. Right. That's for a higher authority to deal with. And I know Mr. Byron is utilizing the courts. But I just want to make sure, and maybe Trinity can just, you don't need to come up here. You just, maybe if you just let me know by saying, raising your hand, that in terms of the diverging diamond, all that intersection improvement that's going to be going there, you have enough room, and this doesn't really interfere with all of that. Okay, so I just want to make sure that was clear. And Mr. Byron, you're in court, so I think that's where you're going to have to ferret these issues
Well,
out.
I actually wanted to see what a divergent diamond looks like, and Trinity's crew told me, Mike Bosey said, you got to go up to Sarasota. There's one, and that's the only one they're familiar with, where it has a divergent diamond design. I had never even heard of these. I'm used to them taking the front of mine because there's more people coming off the interstate right there that are coming onto Pine Ridge Road off the interstate. And as we know, they're coming down, and that's the road they get off of. Usually it was a Immokalee Road, which got a lot of expansion there, but now it's just they're cutting little pieces off of us as they improve or add more traffic problems to Collier County. That's basically it.
I can suggest Google Maps will be a friend to you.
Oh, I already did. I never heard of this. I wasn't looking for something I didn't know. Google is great, but when you don't know what a divergent design plan, I'm saying, what is that? It's like, is it to get off the interstate or get on the interstate? And why does it? The plan I'll show you, if I light it up over there, that was just given to me. I always go to Mike Bosey because Mike knows stuff that nobody else knows. He's a very well-educated in everything, specifically related now to this divergent design plan. And he actually, Jamie Cook drew a little plan. And I want to show it to you because I'm there like, wow, how do they do that without elevating one of the lanes? So, well, when I get up to complain later, when I go sit down and I come up as the process goes, they show the plan and then we get up and object when we see something like, I didn't know the building was as big as a Walmart. I said, whoa, that's a little piece of land for a Walmart. And then the people on the north end, that's Livingston Woods Lane. I thought, man, they would be here complaining about everything like normally people do, right? I've been spending my life like that. But in any case, I'll go sit down, and when I get up, I'll show you this plan that was drawn about an hour ago. Thank you.
There's no more.
Mr. McDaniel.
I'm going to make a motion for approval.
I'm going to second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 9D. This is a recommendation to adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 2002-63, which established the Conservation Collier program. Mr. Jamie French, your department head from Community Development Growth Management, will begin the presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Jamie French. Commissioners, this item is being brought back to you by your direction with all of the changes that have been provided. They've been provided to you in your packages. I know you've received some additional emails. Commissioner Colwell, one of the things that you had asked us to do was perhaps better define our weighting criteria because we were so crunched on time with the resolution, with the ordinance to meet that advertising deadline that was directed by the board. We'll be bringing that back to you by resolution. Currently, there is a current staff process, but the weighting, we're going to try to simplify the weighting so that where it's maybe an A, B, C, or D type weighting, so then the board can actually reflect that. And we're available for any questions. Ms. Cook is here. I think Mr. Finn is also here to talk about any of the budget criteria that you may have.
So there's no other changes other than what we talked about the other day?
Exactly what you asked for.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Oh, we got public comment.
No. Okay.
Sorry, sir. I was late on the button. We have 3 registered speakers for this item. Your first speaker is Brad Cornell. He will be followed by Gordon Brumwell.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. It's all good.
Oh, Brad, give me just a minute. I'll get your thing ready. I'm sorry.
Right.
Great. Good morning, Commissioners. Brad Cornell on behalf of Audubon Western Everglades and Audubon, Florida. Thank you for the opportunity to address you about the ordinance. Let's see. Here we go. So Audubon fully supports the several ordinance revisions you discussed at your March 12th meeting, which accelerate land acquisition. Your discussion then was very constructive. We, however, do have a small but important refinement to the single policy on diversion of program funds. And I'll just note that as you look at the text we're going to show you, the Audubon recommendations are in red. Audubon recommends better defining emergencies as those officially declared by local, state, and federal authorities. Also, it would be best to define the replacement time frame as promptly in order to assure program obligations, especially land management, are met. And so the way we would recommend the last paragraph of this introductory section 6 is, at the direction of the board, funds may be transferred between the two funds. In the event of an emergency as determined by local, state, or federal official declarations, funds may be withdrawn provided all such diverted funds shall be replaced promptly to assure program obligations, including land management, are met. We also believe it's especially important to replace the $38 million that you plan to divert from the Management Trust Fund this fiscal year 24 to assure long-term management capability from the interest generated. Best would be not to divert that money at all, but should that happen, this fiscal year, that would be very important to get those management funds back. Audubon also recommends revising the conservation easement text. And so this is in section 8, number 4. Any easements purchased should be permanent and consistent with Conservation Collier criteria and objectives. You should not require agriculture or single-family development on such easements. Of course, that can be components of negotiation, but not needed on every or required for every easement. Also, on the TDR credits, you should allow credits to be retained for future use rather than entitling development immediately, which is the way it's currently worded. So on that one paragraph, 4A, it would read, the property will retain those development rights as negotiated by the parties and assuring a permanent conservation benefit consistent with Conservation Collier program criteria and objectives. So we believe that's what you want out of a conservation easement that you would purchase, and that would be the best use of public funds in buying a conservation easement. So that's all the recommendations we have. We recommend you make those changes and move the changes you had directed back on March 12th. We believe those are strong for accelerating the program, land acquisition, and making this more efficient. Thank you very much for that constructive discussion, and happy to answer any questions you may have on these recommended changes.
Commissioner McDaniel?
If you would go back 3 slides to the language with regard to the declaration of emergency. I just want to reread. That's the first that I've actually gotten to have a look at this. Okay. That's under section 6. Gotcha.
Yeah, right at the top of section 6.
Thank you. And I thank you, Brad, for your recommendations and assistance with this. It's been huge.
You're welcome.
Mr. Saunders?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The environmental folks that have been very familiar with this program since its inception have asked for what I would summarize as 3 different changes. And I'd like to make a motion to have the language as recommended by Brad Cornell in those 3 sections, the emergency declaration, the easement language, and the TDR credit language. I'd like to make a motion that we incorporate that language in this ordinance.
Mr. Chair, we're in the middle of public speaking. Brad was our first speaker. I think there's a total of 3.
Well, I'll withdraw that motion until we get, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Your next public speaker is Gordon Brumwell. He'll be followed on Zoom by Galen Vasaturo.
Hi, Gordon Brumwell, PhD in biology from District 4. Thanks for hearing us today. Our vision on your webpage is to be the best community in America in which to live, work, and play. 2 weeks ago, it became clear we the people think accessible green space is necessary to be a great place. Early Conservation Collier votes, Parks and Rec's 2018 survey, 2020's East Naples Community Development Plan, the Conservation Collier vote in 20, and the recent community survey showing prioritization of the environment having roughly doubled in 5 years. Green space is key. So let's assess how we're doing. On the left, in the black border, the green dots with an X are about an acre each only. There's a preserve to the southeast, and maybe I missed 1 or 2. I'm an amateur mapper. But compared to the many green dots outside that border, the border outlines a 30,000 plus acre green space desert. Heck, many people outside the desert can walk to multiple spots. Well, how do we compare it to elsewhere? On the right, we see our desert would not fit anywhere over Greater Chicago without encompassing many small, medium, and large preserves or greenways that literally stretch for miles. Next, please. Consider Monroe County in the Poconos, a vacay-oriented place like us. Conserved space, green, all over the place, and many trails and greenways and more planned. Even other Floridians are doing it. Next, please. This part of the town of Malabar shows sanctuaries green, integrated with residential, and they have separated paths. Conservation Collier can help us be a great place, so it is great. The process has been sped and easements can play a role. But we need available, deep reserves for unexpected conservation opportunities. So please align the definition of an emergency with county, state, or federal definitions so the funds are available for conservation the vast majority of the time, but also for emergencies, but are also promptly restored. Please adjust the easement language so easements meet strict conservation goals and will be as permanent as land bought outright. Finally, please restore any monies already borrowed because we are behind relative to the equitably spaced public land purchases that could make Collier County a great place to live. Thank you.
Your next and final speaker joins us on Zoom, Gayleen Vasaturo. Gayleen, you should be getting prompted to unmute yourself at this point. If you'll do so at this time, Gayleen. Gayleen is not unmuting.
There I am.
There she is. Thank you, Gayleen. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't need 3 minutes, just a brief comment. And it concerns the language that Brad Cornell addressed, the language that was added to the Section 6 concerning diversion of funds from the Conservation Collier. The revised language that appeared in the draft for today did provide some qualifiers on the diversion, but we're still very concerned about that language because it it allowed for a lot of leeway. I mean, in 3 separate referendums over a period of 18 years, voters in Collier County overwhelmingly agreed to set aside their tax dollars for acquiring and preserving natural land. And we have trusted you, the board, to be responsive to this expressed will of the voters. And I think that the language that Brad Cornell provided adds some additional qualifiers that will help keep it to really an extraordinary circumstance if you do go to find that an emergency requires you needing those funds. I know one of your commissioners had said at the last meeting that this was a one-time event, and when they took the funds out previously, last in 2023. And I guess I think, you know, if that being the case, and it truly should be an extraordinary circumstance or an emergency, then I think Mr. Cornell's language goes towards helping to meet that goal. So that's it. Thank you.
That's all of our public speakers on this item.
Commissioner McDaniel.
I had a comment to Commissioner Saunders' original or previous motion. I have an issue with the proposed language in Section 6 with regard to that restrictions on the definition of emergency. The premise when we talked about this at our last meeting allowed for that emergency to be established by this Board of County Commissioners. The premise being that the definition of an emergency was up to the eye of the beholder, as a matter of fact. So I'm not in support of the proposed language that was put up there today with regard to Section 6. I'm okay with 4A. I like that language with regard to the easements and the permanency of and so on, and the holding of those. That's something that I've always wanted with regard to Conservation Collier, that lands that were in fact bought have development rights that could inure to the benefit of the county and be then utilized back in for additional revenues for Conservation Collier program. I like that language in Section 4A, and I'm assuming staff saw that language and is okay with those changes.
Commissioner, we would only ask that you consider that once the land would come into the program, it's protected by a separate ordinance under the exceptional benefits clause. So we took the board's direction word for word. And clearly the board sets policy, but that language, we believe that that land would already be protected under the exceptional benefits clause.
So we wouldn't need additional language with regard to the permanency and the development rights being transferable.
The transfer of development rights, as indicated at your last meeting by your zoning director, Mr. Bosey, we're going to have to go back through our growth management plan and adjust that so that we could basically speak with the state to make sure that the county can participate in that. Currently, the county does not participate in the TDRs because it is controlled by the private market, and we monitor and control the issuing of those TDR credits.
I understand.
So yes, sir, that needs to come back anyway, and that's our intention, is to bring that back.
So that language in section 4A, you're not in favor of seeing that language adjusted?
We believe it may be premature.
Well, it certainly is premature if we haven't effectuated an adjustment to the GMP to allow the county to participate. And I think we already talked about moving forward with that amendment to be able to do that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. And once that we've got an approval from the state, we would bring this ordinance back as well, and we would adjust the language accordingly.
So the presumption is that maybe the state or someone in the food chain along the way wouldn't be happy with the language that was proposed by Brad today. It could get adjusted rather than doing it twice. Leave it as what you submitted to us for approval, and then make the adjustment once we get through with the GMP amendment.
Yes, sir. And respectfully, I believe I recall it correctly, is that is something we discussed at the last board meeting, and we indicated that we would be bringing that back once we could make the determination that we could participate in the TDR credits.
Sure. Can you Ms. Patterson, can you pop up that language that I don't know, it was or Troy, somebody on section, not that one, the section 4A, that one right there. I mean, adding in the word permanent, I think that's a good idea for as far as a conservation easement goes. There's commingling here in this section. And certainly assuring the permanent conservation consistent with conservation program, that language, but the only one you're really not comfortable with is the last part, or a private public TDR credit respiratory, or
well, we believe that the language may be
repository, not respiratory.
Thank you, sir. We believe that C covers that, that it's redundant language.
Okay. So are you okay with the addition of permanent and then the addition of the red language in A?
I hate to go to it, but the board sets policy, sir. We're fine with it.
I mean, is it? Do you
yes, sir. We're happy to work with it. Yes, sir.
Is 4A redundant, though, similar to what you were saying in some of the other sections?
And consulting with Ms. Cook, we believe it is from staff's perspective.
Yeah.
You finished, Mr. McGinn?
No, I'm good for now. I want to hear what the rest have.
Mr. Saunders?
Okay, thank you. Redundancy is not a problem. I don't see any issues with being redundant. This is our Conservation Collier ordinance, and I like the way this tightens things up. So I like what is recommended for A, B, and C, the language there, or there's no change in B. And so I'd like to see us incorporate that language. I don't understand how that could create a problem with the state at all, and if it, I just don't understand that. So I'd like to see us incorporate that. I'd like to do this in two pieces because I think there is some agreement here. I'm going to make a motion to incorporate the language that's on the screen right now that was presented by Mr. Brad Cornell, which amends 4 by putting in the word permanent, amends Section A, and then down at the bottom, dealing with the receiving lands or a private or public TDR credit repository. I don't see how that can create any problems for us at the state level, but I think it tightens up our conservation Collier ordinance. If we need to come back and change it, we can obviously do that. So that's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that. I agree with you. And if we have to do an adjustment, once we go through the amendment to the GMP, we can adjust this line. If someone at the state tweaks our ability, I agree with you that it doesn't really have an impact, so I'm okay with that. I'm second.
Commissioner Castro.
Yeah, I was just going to stress that redundancy is not always a bad thing. I mean, I don't love it at times because then I think it just is, it's not required. But there's been so many questions about conservation Collier that I think in this particular case it's not overdone. Stressing permanence and a couple of the other words that are covered in other ordinances or other documents. I was going to sort of echo what I'm hearing my colleagues say, is that I think it gives clarity and confirmation to the things that people are concerned about. So if we have it in multiple places, it relieves a lot of ambiguity, I think. So I will say, I like that we're voting on these one at a time, because I do have some concerns at Section 6, the emergency definition piece. But I'll wait till we get to that, and I'll light up again if I've got a question. But I would vote for the motion to pass number 4, as amended with the red text.
Mr. Cowell.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question for staff. Were you insinuating that because the word permanent, it was not necessary because does subsection C, does that relate to what you were trying to say, or is that?
Well, you have an exceptional benefits clause that even in the event that we were to vacate or there was a request to vacate an easement for some other benefit, it would have to meet that exceptional benefit. In other words, showing that there was a benefit to the program, to the county, that it would be in the best interest of the program, not the applicant, to vacate that property.
Okay. I'd like just to remind my fellow members up here that 2 weeks ago we did have a problem with redundancy.
Yeah.
I think referring back to the other slide where we kept saying we had the right to move it, the right to move it. And I think Mr. Cornell talked us all into just saying it once in the ordinance. So I think I'll remind everybody of that we do sometimes have a problem with redundancy. So
I think sometimes, though, we also sit up here for an hour and talk about where a comma should be, and I don't think that's the most efficient use of anybody's time. So, we're talking about one word here, and I think it gives clarity. But point well taken.
I will remind you of Mr. Well, he's not here anymore, the fine attorney, that a comma is very important.
Right, absolutely.
We've taken great care to reduce the number of unqualified modifiers, I think is what he referred to it as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can count to 3. We have a motion and a second. So all in favor of adopting Section 4 as amended in red, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Commissioner Saunders.
Yeah, let's jump into the unpopular language. Going back, if you could put on the screen the language under Section 6, I believe. We tightened this up. I had made some suggestions at the last meeting to make this into 2 sentences so that we didn't have to have any concern about a comma. But we all said that this was the removal of funds was a one-time deal, and what they're asking for, and I think it makes sense, that there be some official declaration that can be from us, obviously. And I think the concern that the supporters of Conservation Collier have is that if we leave this open where the funds can be removed once the commission determines that there's some emergency, then unless we tighten that up, almost anything is an emergency. During the budget process last September, the final result was to transfer funds. There was no emergency. Obviously there was a reduction in the millage rate, but there was no real declaration by the county of an emergency, whether official or unofficial. And so I think that's what the concern is. I'd like to tighten this language up, Mr. Chairman and fellow members of this board, that we send a message that we took those funds out that one time, and in order to do that again, there's going to have to be more of an official emergency, not something that just happens at a budget hearing. And so I'm going to make a motion that we include this language, because it really ties our hands, but at the same time doesn't tie our hands too terribly, because we can determine some local emergency. We don't need to rely on the state or federal officials to do it. It says right here that it can be a local emergency. But it needs to be something, I think, more official than just simply saying if we decide to remove those funds, we can do that. I think it sends a real positive message to the community. And I agree with the speakers that talk about making this really a wonderful community. It is a wonderful community, but we want to keep it that way. And providing more open space is critical, and this language helps us in that regard. So I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. LaCastro.
I mean, I don't want to split hairs on wordsmithing this thing to death, but this is a local program, and I sort of cringe a little bit when I see the words state, federal, official declarations. I mean, this board over the last few months has done great things to bring stuff to the local level, to give us local authority. I don't think the words the Board of County Commissioners means we're going to do something haphazard and stupid, and anything we decide to do is going to be filled with a room full of people that either agree or disagree. I just think when you have a local document, I think leaving the Board of County Commissioners or adding these red the red edits is 6 1, half dozen the other. It's happy to glad, small dog to puppy. But in a local document here, as a citizen, I rather see local words than, as determined by the state or the federal declarations. I mean, haven't we been working hard for months here talking about how, we want local control, local decisions. And I understand what Commissioner Saunders is saying, but I don't think the words the Board of County Commissioners gives us some sort of like irresponsible authority to just do whatever the heck we want. I mean, I think we're all smart enough to know what an emergency is or what's emergent. And, there again, I don't think taking that out and putting local, state, or federal makes this a better document. Maybe it makes it different, but I don't know that it makes it any better. And in a small way, in my mind, it makes it a little worse, because I like the local type of words. I don't know if anybody shares my same view, but that's my initial thought.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner LaCastro. I'm not happy with local, state, federal declarations. I think the Board of County Commissioners is sufficient, as was agreed upon the last time when we developed this language. I don't. It wasn't done willy-nilly. When the move was, the entire premise here was to allow for some discretion with regard to moving the money for necessary things. I liked the language as soon as practicable, because I know when we talk about what we did at last year's budget hearing, that wasn't done willy-nilly. That was done with a plan. That was done with evidence of ongoing annual burn rate, maintenance expenses, ongoing the previous 3 years acquisitions. And I agree with Commissioner LaCastro. It wasn't done willy-nilly. So now, having language with regard to in here for defining. I thought the language as soon as practicable was sufficient. Promptly to assure program obligations, including land management, are met I think that is maybe a better description, but I don't have any interest in the local, state, or federal declaration. I think going ahead and leaving it as was written and proposed by staff with the Board of County Commissioners. And then I'd be okay with promptly to assure program obligations, including the land management are met. I'm okay with the second part of the red, but not the first.
So am I.
Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I kind of agree with some of my colleagues up here that this is a local program. It's a county program. And, you know, I didn't like the word emergency to begin with, but I didn't really have anything to add to it or replace it at the time, and 2 weeks ago, because I was afraid it would open up a can of worms with, you know, connecting all these different layers of government to it. And, you know, hey, if there's the state declares a state of emergency because of a hurricane, of course, we're going to declare it ourselves. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You know, I don't need the state to tell me that we're going to have a hurricane. We understand that, and our staff will approach that appropriately, and we will declare our own emergency. But then in the same state, you know, look back a few years ago, COVID was a state of an emergency. So now you got the governor claiming COVID is a state of emergency. Does that give us a right to start pillaging our funds through, you know, conservation Collier? There's no need to do that. You know, so this is more of a local program, and I think it should be controlled locally by your county commissioners. And I do still like the language as soon as practicable. But yeah, I don't like the state or federal declaration. I think this is a local decision. It's local taxes, and I think we have the ability to make those determinations if it's an emergency or not. And if it's even something that's, you know, do we even want to, you know, have the taste to even do. So, yeah.
If we just said as determined by, an emergency as determined by a local declaration, would that satisfy everybody to just take out state or federal?
It's not going to satisfy me. I'm going to comment real quick. It's obvious that this came forth because there are those that had sour grapes about what we did with the money last year. And I've said it before, you can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. It is my intention to grow this Conservation Collier program. We took that money because that money was not being utilized. And I was the commissioner who said this was a one-time thing. And we live in a time that your word doesn't mean very much, but it solidifies me. I took that money last year to start the budget process so that we could have a beginning to shrink this local government. We turned around and we funded Conservation Collier. So all of this language to me doesn't mean a thing. I'm gonna stick with what we talked about in the last meeting. I'm good to say if we ever had to in the future ever take this money for any other purpose, to repay it promptly as possible. I mean, that's just common sense. But as far as the emergency thing, it should be whatever we as a board determine is the best and appropriate use by a simple majority. Commissioner Saunders.
That's fine. I understand. I helped draft the language in terms of the emergency language the last time, and I understand my motion will fail for a lack of a second. But if we go back to the original language, that we remove that only in the event of an emergency as determined by the Board of County Commissioners. That doesn't tighten it up as much as I would like to, but at least it's a little tighter than it was.
Mr. Colwell.
Okay, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to accept Section 6 as amended with adding to promptly pay the money back as soon as applicable.
And not the state, and adding back
Without-
the Board of
without the
County
emergency.
Commissioners as is lined through here. The Board of County Commissioners as determined by the Board of County Commissioners. And I'll second that motion.
Just so I understand what we're voting on. So the language in this section will read, at the direction of the board, funds may be transferred between the two funds, period. In the event of an emergency as determined by the Board of County Commissioners, funds may be withdrawn, provided all such diverted funds shall be replaced as soon as practicable, is what was. Yeah, all right. And I'll second that motion if it's,
All right.
hasn't been seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, what's the next section?
I think all we need is a motion.
that's it.
Okay.
Well, I think we need a motion to approve the ordinance as amended this morning.
I'll make that motion,
I'll second that motion.
and I do have a comment.
Go ahead and comment and we'll vote.
Okay, and the comment is, and because it's been represented multiple times by our speakers with regard to the repayment of the monies that were moved last year, that's not part of this ordinance discussion today. But it is going to be a part of our upcoming discussions with regard to our budget and how we're managing going forward. So,
Commissioner LaCastro.
So I'm happy with the language that we just voted on, but, you know, one of the things I feel like that's been lost in all this discussion of, you know, a word here and a word there is the biggest problem we had with Conservation Collier over the last 2 years, and that was having taxpayers put money in the fund and that money not being spent as quickly as it should have been. You know, I'm still a little bit flabbergasted that, you know, folks that believe in this program as much as we do, and so that we're included in that, weren't more outraged that $60 million was collected and only $5 million was spent in a 2-year period. We did a lot of things to reverse that, and I've said, you know, at several town hall meetings, and I'm sure my colleagues have repeated the same thing, we probably have purchased more land under Conservation Collier in the last 4, 5, 6 months in a short time than had been done in maybe the last 2 years. So this is all great, and the language is wonderful, and this will go in a book and sit on the shelf, but we should be ashamed of ourselves if at almost every county commissioner meeting, and I won't say everyone, but at frequent county commissioner meetings, a list isn't brought to us with properties for consideration. And I think we've made it very clear we don't want those properties stacked up and brought to us once a year, that we want them brought to us on a more regular basis so we don't lose out on some properties, which I know has happened. You know, landowners sat and waited for 6 months for the previous team to contact them, and then when we finally got to the vote, property was already long gone. So, you know, just in conclusion, this is all wonderful, the verbiage, but the execution of the program is the thing that failed, and that's what we shined a light on. So it wasn't about stealing money and doing this. It was about money sitting dusty, and plenty of properties that qualified for Conservation Collier should have come to this board on a much faster timeline, and I think we've rectified that. And by shining a light on the program too, I think we also helped pull all those that are supportive of this program into one big group and be a little bit more informed of how the program actually works, how it doesn't work, what it can buy, what it can't buy. So that was all great. But I just would just say in conclusion, let's continue to be aggressive to identify properties and bring them to us for consideration. And that's what the program's all about. Not necessarily, you know, a word here or a word there. This is important as well. But I think that was the biggest, I won't say failure of the program. I guess the best word I would use in conclusion is disappointment in the program, that money was collected way faster and was just being sort of, you know, collecting dust, I think, as we said here multiple times. So we don't want to be guilty of that anymore. And, you know, your team, Mr. French, and Jamie Cook's work in the last few months have proven that we can certainly identify these properties much quicker and bring them to us much more efficiently for consideration. So let's make sure we continue to do that.
Commissioners, thank you so much. We appreciate your leadership and your direction, and you used the word aggressive. We have taken a much more aggressive approach under Ms. Cook's leadership, and with the support of the county manager's office, we're currently looking at the structure of the organization with regards to the staffing, and we've worked so close with your volunteers, and we're so appreciative of the volunteers and the outside agencies that, like Brad Cornell represents. They're wonderful partners. But I would tell you that we do have a list of properties. I would tell you that they are north of $20 million that will be coming your way, probably the second meeting in April. Not to overshadow the Williams property. We're currently working with Ed Finn, our deputy county manager, and my direct report, my boss, to make sure that we negotiate a good project for you to consider. where it's got a conservation Collier consideration with it. So we look forward to being able to continue to serve this program. We think it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ordinance is done deal.
Till we change it again.
Commissioners, that brings us to our add-on item 10A. This is a recommendation to submit a letter to Governor DeSantis to urge him to veto Senate Bill 7014, the ethics bill. This item was added to the agenda by Commissioner Saunders.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for adding this on as an add-on without any prior notice, but timing is always kind of important when you're dealing with the legislature. The governor does not have this bill yet, so when he does get this bill, he'll have 15 days in which to take action on it. So if we're not able to come to any consensus today, we still have, I think, one more meeting where we can take some action. But let me explain what the bill does that I find to be something that we should not, or the legislature should not approve. We have an ethics commission, and that ethics commission evaluates complaints and then makes a determination if there's probable cause, and if there is, then they'll go through a public hearing process. We're all familiar with that. As a matter of fact, in the many years that I've been in public office, I've actually had 2 ethics complaints filed. One of them I filed myself because I needed an opinion from the Ethics Commission, and that came out positive for me, and so did the second one. And what I've always found is that they do a really good job in evaluating these complaints and determining whether there's probable cause and going through the process. There's been a standard in Florida where it's basically the complaint. It's basically a written complaint, it's a written complaint that's filed, and the complainant has to have some information to generate the complaint. That's been the standard for decades. The new standard, and this was added in this legislation this session, it says, upon a written complaint executed on a form prescribed by the Commission, which is based upon personal knowledge or information other than hearsay and signed under oath. The addition of based upon personal knowledge or information, I think, makes it impossible to have complaints filed. Take a simple robbery situation where somebody may hear something about that and want it to be investigated. Well, the only 2 people that would have personal knowledge would be the person taking the bribe and the person giving the bribe. Nobody else would have personal knowledge of that type of a scenario. And so I think from a statewide policy position, it's better to have consistency with what the current language is as opposed to having this language. There are several organizations that believe that this will, in effect, eliminate the ability for the Ethics Commission to even exist. There'll be really no ability to file complaints against elected officials. There are several organizations that have written letters to the governor. We have a draft of one that is very similar, and I'd like the board to consider taking a look at this. Now, there's an ethics panel in the city of Naples that the citizens in the city of Naples voted on, and it's a very formal process, and this legislation will make that ethics commission ineffective. And there are a lot of these local ethics commissions around the state that are writing to the governor as well. And so we don't need to take any action today, but I'd like the board to consider this as to whether or not we would write a letter saying to the governor that we think that this cripples our ethics commission, and ethics in government is critically important, and I know we all agree with that.
All right, Commissioner Saunders or Mr. Mullins, do y'all have any knowledge of what the legislature was really, was this the only intent of the bill, or was there other stuff that could be positive that we could be missing?
There is other stuff in the legislation. That was not the only thing. This was an amendment that was added sort of at the last minute on the floor, I believe. And so there are other things in there, and that's the unfortunate part about legislation sometimes is there's a lot of good stuff, and then there's a poison pill that's added that really makes it more difficult to adopt the good stuff.
Yeah, for the record, John Mullinger, Director of Communications, Government and Public Affairs. And to the Commissioner's point, yes, this was an amendment that was offered on the floor as it was before the full body. It was not considered in the committee process itself. The bill itself is mostly procedural in how the ethics commissions function, things like term limits and different processes that you have to go through for investigations. To the Commissioner's point as well, this would probably take out just about any ability to have a whistleblower type situation, because you would have to come forward again with having personal knowledge and information to back that up, which means you'd probably have to file a complaint under oath, which would be a pretty high standard to have. So an anonymous whistleblower situation would probably go away under this legislation.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, and I would like, if I understood you correctly, I'd like a couple of weeks to be able to review this. I haven't looked at this language. I'm not inflicted with a mental issue called a law degree, such as yourself, but it sounds to me a lot like interpretation with regard to personal knowledge of an ethics violation, purportedly or not. And so I'd like a little bit of time to review the entire bill before I.
I think we have time, as I said. But I wanted to get the discussion started, and this was the only way I could really do that in a meaningful way. So perhaps we have no issue to continue this, and that'll give our local delegation that supported this legislation an opportunity to weigh in as well as. And again, this kind of goes to local control issues. And I think this takes away a lot of local control, as in the city of Naples with their ethics commission. Whether you like it or not, that's what the city of Naples, the residents wanted. And so, because there was a referendum on that issue. And so this kind of cripples those local efforts. So
I think
would not be a bad idea.
Yeah, to piggyback that, I think the local ethics commissions currently have the ability to self-initiate investigations, and I'm also not afflicted with a legal degree. I'm a Christian. But basically, this would take away their ability to self-initiate.
Well, on that note, I'd also maybe get in contact with our lobbyist as well, just to hear the backstory on what the ultimate outcome is with that add-on and that amendment. So I'll look forward to more discussion.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
John, just one question. You referred to a whistleblower. Is there any specific language in any statutes referring to whistleblowers, like with internal organizations and things like that? Let's say like FDLE, like Florida Department of Law Enforcement. If somebody internally in like an agency like that feels there's some unjust going on, is there any other statutes pertaining to that, or is this solely just we're talking about a citizen feeling that there's an issue and making a complaint?
Yes, I think this is just talking about the anonymous complaint of a citizen. But, once again, not being a lawyer, I don't want to say that there aren't other sections of Florida statutes that may apply to other situations.
And Commissioner Cowell, there's a separate whistleblower statute. For example, if there was some sort of operational wrongdoing at a public utilities plant or something, that would still apply. This pertains primarily to ethics issues. It would affect politicians. It would affect other people that may get involved in graft or something along those lines. And I can tell you this, I went ahead and I looked at the legislative memorandums. They sort of spell out why they're doing things, and there was no discussion on why this language was taken. But Commissioner Saunders is correct. You might overhear somebody actually say something that's very credible regarding an ethics violation, but that would be hearsay, because that's, in the law, we call hearsay an out-of-court statement asserted the truth of the matter asserted. And so that person who might have a very credible reason to believe somebody who's in a high position would be unable to then file a complaint under oath, under information and belief, because this higher standard of personal knowledge is required now.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, that helps. Any other
We'll place that on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, I believe some of you are due over to have lunch with the Know Your County government.
I didn't think you'd ever say it.
So if you want to break for lunch, and we can pick up with the rest of the 11 items before our 2:30 time certain would probably time well.
Is that up on the 5th floor? Or where?
I heard it's at the
Museum.
We're at the museum. Is
What's
an
that,
hour-
golf cart?
Golf carts to move you over.
Okay.
Oh, moving on up.
Who,
So is an hour long enough over there, or should we come back at like
we got to,
1:15?
Probably a couple minutes. That would actually probably time well. We have a few items to take care of before we get to our 2:30 time certain.
All right, so let's come back at 1:15.
Perfect. I may miss the